you can decide to use all the pronouns for God, he, she, it, they, and just kind of mix it up. The other way is to not use any gender specific, but just basically say the word God and don't use pronouns. So anyway, so that's a part of how the hymnals have been rewritten. And then also when it's talking about the congregation or the followers of Jesus, is not only guys, but it's male and female. And then there's also some hymns that are more like God is angry, God is violent, so that gets toned down, right? So all of those things in the progressive hymnal are altered, but you still use a pipe organ.
Yes.
So it's like that we don't change.
Yeah.
We don't change the organ, and we don't change the robes, and we don't change the time that we meet. That we don't mess with, because that is tradition. That is we're very conservative. We're very conservative in that regard. But when it comes to other things, we say, well, maybe Mary wasn't a virgin, and maybe Jesus didn't raise from the. It's like, whoa. We'll be very modern in that way of thinking. So.
Do we have time before this? What time are we starting? Right away?
We started already.
Well, it's going to take like 5 minutes. Okay?
No, go ahead.
I'm muddled about the whole Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And because, let me put it this way. I was born just before the crash, before the
Depression?
and then I went through the World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And although I was small, I knew what was happening, but I didn't know why. What caused the crash? What caused World War II?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, the Japanese bombed, Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm.
But why? I don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing with the Bible. I know bits and pieces here and there. Why were they so many years in the forest? Why did Lot's wife turn to stone?
Mm-hmm.
Which may be a fable and all that, but you hear all these stories and you don't know where they come from or why. I can't tie it all together.
Right.
And
You're not
that's
alone.
A problem.
You're not alone. You're not alone at all. In fact, that's probably the reason why we keep coming back and talking about it, is because we're still trying to have a better grasp on what all of this means, because we really don't know either. That's why we keep going back to study it. And I think that's why even today, though some people might claim not to really be a believer, they might consider themselves to be atheist, or they may not believe that the things written in the Bible are true, but even those folks will go and get a degree and spend their whole life digging and digging, literally digging sometimes, finding artifacts and digging in documents, because there's this curiosity and this mystery in it. And I think there's something about it that is appealing to us, or that kind of draws us in. There's I think we can recognize the humanity or the humanness in these stories. We can say, like, there's some parts I can identify with, even though there's this story about Abraham, God telling him to sacrifice his son, we might have problems with that, and we might debate that, but we don't debate that we believe Abraham probably struggled with that, because as a father, you don't want to sacrifice your children, but that actually is a key component to the story. That's why it is an outrageous request from God, because God is saying, I need everything from you. I need everything from you, like everything. You can't hold anything back if you want to be in a relationship with me. And so we can look at that story and say, there's something that still kind of rings true. Even in what we're studying in these steps, we keep reading about surrender. We have to surrender our will to God. Well, that's what this story is about 3,000 years ago. So it's intriguing that they were dealing with that question even all that time ago when they didn't have modern medicine and, fancy ways to travel and everything like that. So I think the stories in there, they probably survived because they kept speaking to people. Because if they didn't really...
What pushed him into doing this? What was the reason? That's...
We don't know, and that's maybe it's the same as asking ourselves, like, what is it about living life today that really, what wakes us,
I
what
struggle with the same thing
what
today.
wakes me up in the morning? Like, why do I bother to keep living? What is the point of all this? That's the question we ask ourselves today. And so I think those stories are kind of showing that people asked the same question back then. And most of the stories, what we come back to is that the answer is faith. And that's an oversimplification of it. But it basically means we believe life is good, love is worthwhile, our lives are valuable. There's something that I will discover today or tomorrow that I didn't know before, and then there's the big question, kind of, it's like this dangling carrot in front of us. It kind of keeps us going, and we kind of feel like that makes us feel alive to follow after that dangling carrot, whereas giving up and saying, this is all stupid, this is pointless, there's something inside of us that says, like, well, I can understand why somebody feels that way, but I don't think that's a better way,
Right.
until that's you, that you decide to do that.
It isn't
But
that I don't believe it all, it's just that I want to know why did these things, why did Hitler come into power? What caused it? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
we heard
it
about
is very intriguing, and it's like it's fun to think about what the possibilities are, but we're not going to know really. I think we can come up with our best guesses. My best guess about the stock market crash, people got greedy, and the thing blew up, and then and that's what happens with other ones. That's what happened, the most recent housing market crash, which was not as devastating, but had a profound impact. What was this,
2008.
2008, right? So
It's just like it's a patch here and a patch there, and, I want to know
yeah.
why.
Yeah. So part of it is there's this machine that's so complicated. It's like we'll never be able to wrap our mind around all the billions and trillions of moving parts. But we can know a little bit more today than we did before.
What is the story of Lot's wife? What? I know she probably didn't turn to stone, but what caused the whole thing?
So Abraham and Lot were uncle and nephew, right? And when they went into the promised land together as a family, the land was big, and so there was a choice. their families were growing and they weren't going to live together. So Abraham gave Lot a choice of, would you like to take this land or would you like to take this land? So Lot chose the land that was like the better land for grazing, and there were cities and things like that. But he later found out that there were already cities there, or like, towns or whatever, groups of people already living there, and it really wasn't the best neighborhood, basically. And he came to find that it was really not a great choice to live there. And then we had some angels come through, or some divine figures come through and basically warn Lot and say, this group of people is bad news. God is not happy with them, and God is going to destroy this place where you're living. You need to get out. So it's almost like, it's similar to the story of Noah and the ark. It's like God is going to get rid of this and clean this up, but he'll give a chance to some people that are listening to get out. So he tells them, when you get out, don't look back. Trust me. Don't second guess this decision and go. So Lot's wife second guesses the decision. She questions God by turning back, and so that's the whole, that's the whole story.
No.
Yeah, but that's, and see, we can take those stories, if we think about it, it's like sometimes we find ourselves living in circumstances that are not good. Sometimes we need to get out of here. And if we feel that we are being asked by God to go, or we're feeling convicted in our heart, we know that if we waver, that's going to destroy us. We're not trusting. We have to step forward and go for it, because if you stay stuck and you waver, you're just going to be stuck. Yeah. So.
Okay. I think that's fun, though, that as I live, these stories mean more and more. I always thought that Moses and his people who fled Egypt couldn't go into the promised land. They were died off before the younger people were allowed to go in. And I thought they were just being punished because of the golden calf. Well, now I understand that they were still pining away for when you may have a slave master or pharaoh, but at least you had crummy food, and now you were on your own if you go in the promised land. And the older people who were from Egypt hadn't separated themselves enough.
And whether you like it or not, they're on the cusp of one of the most violent sections of the Bible. It is violent, and it's probably one of the sections of the Bible that a lot of people have a lot of problems with, in terms of what God is asking the people to do. Because essentially, what God is asking the people of Israel to do is to commit genocide. Because the promised land is full of people. It's not just this, hey, we found these pastures and lakes and resources and nobody's here and it's ours, yay. No, it wasn't like that. It was like, it's already taken by people, and God said, this is yours, and I want you to take it, but you're going to have to fight. And so they had to go in, and they either assimilated by converting people, or they had to just completely wipe people out. And sometimes it was men, women, children, animals. God said, I don't want any part of these people to be integrated into your lives. I don't want anything, their way of thinking, their way of living, I want it completely out. That's what the God of this section of the Bible tells them to do. So you can't be like, I don't know if I'm ready to go in. It's like, no, when it's time to take over, you have to be ready to die. You have to be ready to fight and die. And then it was there's 12 tribes. So you're going to have to settle 12 different sections. So it was they went in, they wiped out this people. Okay, you guys get this land, the first tribe. Now we're going to go to the next one. Okay, we wiped them out. Now you're going to take theirs. And every story's a little bit different. Jericho's one of the first, that they go in and wipe everything out. And they were still, even after they had kind of taken over, this is when they had the time of the judges, they're still fighting off the survivors of the people that were like, you took our land, but they were convinced that God told them to do it. These are the stories when I took a class of early American literature. And in early American literature, a lot of the writings of our country's foundation are sermons. And so you have a lot of ministers writing either sermons or books and things like that. And in many of the writings, they saw this story of the promised land as that they were reliving it as the chosen people of God who had come from a faraway place to this new world, and this new world was full of heathens, and God was telling those people, convert them or wipe them out. And so they felt justified, and there were sermons that were preached and there were books that were written that encouraged the people, no, you're doing God's work. So we would look at it today, very differently. We would say, oh, we're not really cool with genocide and wiping people out or anything like that. But this is what they use. Now, some will say, and I can understand, some will say, that book is a mess. I think this needs to be thrown out because I don't think God is like that. And I think it's dangerous if we keep it hanging around that somebody's going to pick it up and try to use it and convince other people, oh, it's in the Bible, we should do it. It wouldn't surprise me if World War II, there were probably churches with preaching saying, stick with it. I mean, on both sides. The Germans were Christians. The Americans were Christians. The British were Christians. The Russians were Christians. Well, yeah, until after World War II, yeah. So, everybody has God on their side and that kind of a thing. So, it's tricky to read today, but the reason that I went back to school, I finished my degree in English literature, and I was teaching for a few years, and then I thought to myself, I'm going to get bored teaching this stuff. But when I thought of teaching what's in the Bible, for some reason, I thought, well, I don't think I'm ever going to get bored with that. So some other people might have gotten bored with it, but for me, it's still intriguing because I think we can still find humanity in the stories. We can still understand what God was telling people through our own lens. It helps me to say, I think we still have a ways to go as humans, but we've evolved morally to where we're not, we do still have wars, but I don't think we're as violent toward each other maybe as we were back then, at least on scale, we have found a way to live with each other even though we don't speak the same language or have the same culture or the same religion, and we have figured out a way to live together.
What's going on in Europe? Well,
it's still bad, but I think if you look at the amount of people and you compare it to the wars that took place throughout history, I think there are fewer per capita than before. There's people like, I think maybe Steve, I want to misquote, but I think Steven Pinker might be one that's kind of promoted this idea that actually if we look at where we are as human beings, we are better off today than before. But what happens is we're more sensitive today than we used to be. Now, if you think about it, it used to be like kids don't talk. Kids can shut up and sit in the corner or look nice, but you don't talk. Because we don't really care about what you have to say because you're stupid. That's basically the way people treated kids.
No, but look at the college kids today, what
and
they're
then
doing.
and then we put them to work. You put the little kids to work, and you don't care about them. Today, we're overly sensitive. We're like, oh no. Like, okay, you talk about the college students today. This is the funny thing. You've got the college students that are protesting, and they're outraged at something that, there's a problem. Like, people are dying. That's a problem. But then they're like, and we deserve to have our 3 meals a day and our water, and so we demand that the college bring us our food and water while we protest against. It's like that's where it's like, so we are sensitive, and we baby ourselves, and people don't grow up emotionally as quickly as they used to. It used to be, by the time you're 12 years old, it's almost time for you to have kids. So you better grow up, because you're going to be raising kids real soon. Today, we're like, wait till you're 30.
Yeah.
Come on, live it up. Figure out what you want out of life, and then have kids as an afterthought,
I think 24-hour news makes it seem like everything is worse. Pinkerton,
Right.
Pinker always also said crime is way down.
Right.
If you watch the news, you have no idea that it's down.
We're just aware of it. We weren't aware of it before. Think about the way it was before. It's like before, if you had a brother or sister and they moved to another part of the country, you might get a few letters from them.
They're gone.
But basically, outside of those 5 or 6 letters that they send back to you that make it, you don't know what's happening in their life. And now, you'll know what your brother had for breakfast, and what your brother had for lunch, and what your brother had for dinner, and whether he got indigestion or not. And you'll know everything about every moment, which is too much for us to process,
I have a question, follows Elaine's here, in that I feel there has been a great progress since my teenage years. I remember college when we were marching for equality and the end of the Vietnam War. Young men were dying that I knew. That wasn't just over there. That was people we knew. That violence was intense, and today's I don't think it's as big as they say on the news. It's just people with a different opinion. But I sort of wonder sometimes if we don't have an underground of our personalities. Like, I read where I think it's mushrooms, the biggest plant is in France, and it's mushrooms, little mushrooms on the top, but under the soil, they reach everywhere. And I'm thinking how much of what the life is underneath our society. We're all connected. Some of it's good, some of it's deep, and we're having to flush out the undesirable part of a human nature. And I believe it's happening slowly.
And we focus on our differences, and probably because we're wired for that. But if we looked at our commonalities, what percentage would we have in common with one another? I remember going to it was a museum in Atlanta, Fernbank Museum in Atlanta. And there was a place that we went that was talking about DNA. This was one of few things that blew my mind. And it said that we have, it was something crazy like, I'm going to misquote the number, but let's say 80. This is conservative. 85% of our DNA we share with a pumpkin.
Was what?
A pumpkin.
That's what I thought you said.
I said pumpkin. Yes, because we are living things on this planet, we have stuff in common. 85% of what we have is in common. Now, we look at a pumpkin and we're like, come on, I'm not a pumpkin. But in comparison to everything out there in the universe, we're very similar to a pumpkin, right? So, and then you get to a chimpanzee or something like that, and it's like 98% the same DNA or something crazy like that, you know? So just think about culturally or relationally, it's probably like that. We're probably 98% the same. And then we focus on like our gender differences, our skin differences, our language differences, and those things that stand out. It's like, let's fight about those. Let's talk about those, you know, instead of like, you know, really celebrating and enjoying, like, look, we got a lot in common. In fact, if we focused on what we had in common, we could probably take this planet and make it even better, you know? So, yeah. I think things are getting better. We just like we focus on differences, we focus on what we're doing wrong or what needs to be fixed. And that's fine. That's the way it is. Because that helps us to get things done.
Don't know. In other words, there's cities in Europe, for example. We're driving around over there, my husband said, "Debbie, do you know what's under there? There's tunnels under the whole city. Many, many, many places.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like different cities underneath.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that kind of blows me away too.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's so much we don't know. There's so much we don't know.
I guess we're uncomfortable by what we don't know, although I find that interesting. Every time I learn something new, I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
I'm not scared of it. And that makes the difference between whether you want to talk about the Bible. I have friends that whatever their minister tells them about the Bible, they believe, and they don't want to read it for themselves.
Mm-hmm. It is a very challenging book to read.
And people are afraid if they're reading it wrong. I don't care if somebody doesn't like the way I interpret it. If it works for me, I can change my mind.
Yeah, well, and that is the strange thing, is that we think there is a right way to read it, or we think there is a right answer. Yeah, and that's the.
I've had people correct what I say, because I'm using whatever, I paraphrase what's in the Bible.
Okay.
And they wanted me to literally use whatever version they use, which is
Right.
no longer King James, which is what I use.
Right. Yeah, I use Bible Gateway, which is a website, and I think they have. This is again going to be like an underestimated, but there's 30, 40 different English translations you can pick from, and it's fun to compare side by side, you know, because there can kind of be a difference. It can kind of make you think differently as you approach it. So I think I like to encourage people that you have permission to use your imagination and your intuition as you read the scripture, and
to question.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a phrase that we use when we take communion that says we come to this table because we have questions and even doubts.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, because if you think about it, without questions and doubts, there's no such thing as faith.
Okay.
Because faith means you have questions. Faith means questions exist. Faith means doubt exists. Because without it, it's just certainty. That's all there is. It's just certainty. And Here's the thing. God doesn't want you to be bored. Because if you knew all the answers, then what? Then what?
I never had that problem.
Oh, well, I really get bored. I always want to know something new.
Yeah. Well,
One quick question.
yes.
You've been watching The Chosen?
I have watched The Chosen. I haven't seen the more recent.
Well, no, I haven't
Episodes.
done either one. But I noticed yesterday in the newspaper, there's a book out, and The Chosen is in a book. And
Okay.
I'm asking you whether it's worth buying it or not. Do you think it's...
I like it. I think it's worth buying, sure. Yeah, one of the things that I like about it is the people talk like regular people talk in The Chosen. There was one, I guess, from the 80s when I was growing up. I believe it was a British version. Jesus had blue eyes. I remember that. There's actually a lot of well-known people. James Earl Jones, Darth Vader, was one of the wise men in this version of Jesus of Nazareth, I think is the name of it. And I don't remember if it was BBC but yeah, almost everyone had like a British accent. And I do like that version, and what they tried to do with that version is when people talked, they usually quoted what was in the Bible. So that was kind of neat, I guess. But the thing that's neat about The Chosen is that they just talk like regular people. And they're using creative license to kind of, there's some characters that are not characters of the Bible, but they're interesting because they could have been people that lived at the time. There are conversations that people have that they could have had. Jesus has a good sense of humor in The Chosen.
Really?
Yeah. And you get it, there's a real humanity to it.
Okay.
And it's not preachy. It doesn't come at you like sometimes a religious programming will come at you and kind of tell you what to think. Like all the nature shows that we watch today, I can't watch them anymore because people are like, and you're destroying the environment. And that's what everybody ends up saying that throughout the whole show. And these poor animals because of us horrible humans. It's like I can't even enjoy this thing because I feel so crappy about myself. It's like...
Okay.
I like The Chosen though because of the way the people relate to each other, the movie. Where when the old Jesus movies, it was more like Jesus gave sermons while everybody watched.
Right. Yes.
And
Yeah.
I like that. In fact,
Jesus is a very relatable. In The Chosen, the Jesus character is somebody you would like to be friends with.
Yeah.
It's somebody you would like to talk with. It's somebody that you know that if you got in a conversation, he would understand you and he would look right into your heart. And I think they nailed it in that regard. And I'm interested to see, it's because they are raising money as they make it. They don't have all the money raised yet, and because they're not dependent on a network or a big production budget or whatever, because they're raising the money as they go, they are able to stick with how they are trying to create this thing creatively, express things creatively, and we're still, I don't know how far along we are. It's like, what is it, halfway through? 2/3 of the way through? I mean, it's gone slow. I think that we're in season 4 or something
Well,
like
what you're
that.
telling me is I'm better off not to buy the book because the way they're speaking, I should listen to them or try to get a repeat.
Have you watched it?
No.
Okay, watch it and see what you think.
it's on streaming.
Is it still on? Can I still watch it?
Yes, you can watch it. There's ways to watch it. I don't know how you watch things at home, but there's ways to watch it.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I'm better off really to hear them speaking than to read.
maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And that makes Bible studies more realistic too, because Sherry and I always had trouble that these people followed Jesus and never saw their families again. But in the Chosen, Israel's the size of New Jersey. You can go home for the weekend.
Right.
You know,
Right.
you don't always get that reading a piece of
Right.
book.
And we were saying how hard it is to read the Bible. So when you pick up the Bible, I don't know that we see what you see in The Chosen. What you see in The Chosen is, yes, it's set in a different time period, but it's like, those are real people. Those are real conversations. I get it. I understand it. Sometimes when you pick up and read the New Testament, it's like people don't talk like that, you know. And maybe that's why, like, the Message Bible has had success like it has, because the attempt of the writer Eugene Peterson was to use everyday language and to express what's in the Bible that way. And it draws us in and makes us curious. And then if you're interested in that concept, you can always go to another version. So we're already almost done. Goodness. Before we forget,
Did you start on that today? Are we
No.
done with the 12 steps?
we're still doing the 12 steps.
Okay.
We still will talk about the 12th step today before we leave, at least for 2 minutes.
I ordered the 3 of them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, from Amazon.
So this is where we're going next. This is big.
Yeah.
But we've got some time. This chapter that we're in right now, it's pretty long. It's longer than some of the other ones. So we got a few more weeks in the 12 steps. But I wanted to give you a chance to know that we have found the next book. I wanted to tell you a little bit about it.
Devotion.
And then
Devotion.
I will, if you want, I can take your name down. If you would like for us to order it, we'd be happy to order, and then you can just, when it comes in, they're like $13.
I'm in.
So,
Are you
okay.
want all should we buy all?
We're just gonna, no, let's just do one for now. We can branch off and do the others. I wasn't sure where to start, and I kind of just decided to go with this one. So I'll put it, I've got it up on the screen here. Good to see those of you joining in this morning. So hi, Bob and Carol from Mississippi. Good to see you. Joy and Judy and Naomi.
Hi, Judy.
Good to see you guys.
Oh, Joy, how are you doing?
Yeah. Joy and Judy, both hanging in there. Prayers with you. Been thinking about you.
I'm taking Judy to the doctor's later.
Okay, so speedy recoveries. Let me show you, how am I doing this? Okay, here we go. So I'll throw it up on the screen for you to see at home and for us to see here. This is the cover of the book. It's called Devotional Classics. It is edited by Richard Foster. So if you are looking it up, if you want to go ahead and order it, unfortunately they don't have an ebook or a Kindle. So it's going to be, I'm going to have to be taking pictures like I did this morning and throwing the pictures up on the screen if you're going to watch from home or if you're going to see it here. But we'll figure it out. Here's some of the contents to let you know what this is like. So what this book has done is it is looking at spirituality from 6 different categories, 6 different ways of thinking, all right? So we're thinking about our spiritual life. This is just kind of the introduction section. And then here are the traditions. We have the prayer-filled life. So it's the topic of prayer or contemplation. And then we have the next section is the virtuous life or the holiness tradition. This is where we morally become better people. Hopefully that's a part of our spirituality as well. The charismatic tradition, This is when we have the power of the Holy Spirit working inside of us. And so that is expressed and experienced in some different ways. And then it continues with the compassionate or social justice tradition. So this means we as human beings, we have created systems of organization, the way to help us collectively work together and do life. And along the way, the rules that we make up, sometimes they're not fair. And sometimes they advantage a few people and they disadvantage other people. And so when we're talking about social justice or compassion, we're looking at the people that, as we've done life together, some people have ended up in a bad place for a variety of reasons. And there's always, there's always philosophical discussion on somebody was born that way, they can't help it, it's in their blood, it's in their DNA, it's in their brain, there's nothing they can do about it, so we just got to help them out, take care of them. Others are like, hey, you need to stop being lazy, and you need to try to educate yourself, and you need to work harder, and you can do better. That's the other philosophy there. But somewhere in the mix, there's still people, for whatever reason, that need help. So that's part of it. The word-centered or evangelical tradition, this is where we're taking the good word and spreading it, taking the good news, taking our good experiences and sharing it with people. And then the last one is the incarnational or sacramental life. So this is where we believe that the incarnation is the belief that God is embodied in Christ, and God also does this in other ways where the divine presence is infused within this life in some way. So how do we acknowledge that and participate in that? So those are the 6 traditions, and then as you can see, we have a big variety of authors. These are authors that have written spiritual works, religious works, and these are people that have kind of stood the test of time. Some of these people will be familiar to you. Some of these people will be new to you. Some of these people have been around since the Middle Ages. Some, like this first one here, C.S. Lewis. C.S. Lewis was here, during World War I and II, probably, right? He was friends with J.R.R. Tolkien, who wrote Lord of the Rings, and he wrote Chronicles of Narnia, and Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings, and they used to hang out in the pub together and share ideas. And he was converted to Christianity later in life when he was already an educated person. So he has written a lot of great work. So he's one writer. Dallas Willard, Jonathan Edwards. Jonathan Edwards is one of these preachers from the early American experience. One of these ones that his favorite sermon is you're a spider hanging from a web, and God is dangling you over the fire, the campfire, and if you don't watch yourself, you will be burning in the pits of hell forever. He did other stuff too that was good, but anyway.
That was a scary.
That was one of the ones that he was known for. John of the Cross, Bernard of Clairvaux, Thomas Merton, let's see, Martin Luther, you might know John Calvin, Teresa of Avila, George Fox. So we've got modern folks mixed in with folks that were gone centuries ago, and we're going to hear what they have to say about these traditions, and then we'll get to discuss these topics. So I'm encouraged and curious to see how it goes. I'm thinking probably what we'll do is we'll take one writer and see what they have about prayer, and then we'll do another writer and see what they say about another section. And it'll be a mixture of writings and authors along with these 6 topics that are just like topics we're always talking about in this group anyway. So
That book right now, by the way, it's on sale on Amazon for $7.82.
$7.82 on sale. Nice. It's about almost half
Can you
the
order
price.
one too?
Yes. So would you all like
I'd like.
order one for you? Order one for you. You're gonna get your own. You already have yours. And order one for you. Okay.
Do you want one of those?
And then if you're watching from home, if you would like to, don't leave it in the comments just because it might get lost, but if you'll email the church and let us know you would like a copy of the next book, we can order it for you, and you can pick it up at the church. And we'll see if we can get that deal, the $7 and something deal. Well, in our last 10 or 15 minutes or so, let's do some damage here. This is where we left off in step 12. A good spirituality achieves two huge things simultaneously. It keeps God absolutely free and not bound by any of our formulas, and it keeps us utterly free ourselves and not forced or constrained by any circumstances whatsoever, even human laws, sin, limitations, failure, or tragedy. It was, quote, "It was for freedom that Christ has set us free," as Paul says in Galatians. Good religion keeps God free for people and keeps people free for God. You cannot improve on that. I'm going to keep going because it's in the same vein. Believe me, it's a full-time job. Jesus spent much of his time defending his healing ministry from observant religious authorities and reminded them that the Sabbath was made for humanity, not humanity for the Sabbath. We all seem to bind up both God and one another inside of our explanations, our preferences, even our theologies. The pattern never seemed to change. The patterns never change. When these two great freedoms meet, we have a spiritual awakening, and the world opens up beneath our feet and above our heads. We are in a differently shaped universe. It's not that God chooses some people to have a spiritual awakening and others not. Awakening just happens, as certain as the dawn, when two great freedoms meet. But keeping God free from bad teachings, fear, doubt, and getting you free from selfishness, victimhood, and childhood wounds is the big rub and the lifelong task. Like two super magnets, when the two freedoms are achieved simultaneously, even for a millisecond, they grab onto one another. And as in nuclear fusion, an explosion always results. It is without doubt the change that changes everything. It is both divine love-making and human ecstasy. All right, so two freedoms. God, absolutely free to be God. And what that means is nobody can say, if you want to know about God, ask me, because I got God figured out. I'll tell you exactly what God is like and what God is not like. And many people have done that. Many groups of people have done that for as long as humans have been around. That's where the priest got the priest job, right? Go to the priest. The priest knows. So a good priest will remind people, we don't know. We don't know. We are having faith in something. That means we think, we believe, we're learning, we're changing. Who I thought God was is not the same today as who God was last year or 10 years ago or 30 years ago, because I understand God differently because I'm different, right? So we have to be careful not to confuse my understanding of life and my filter for understanding today. We don't confuse that with who God is. So this is what I think, this is our way of explaining what happened in Genesis and Exodus, I guess it was in Exodus, and the Judges, when the people of Israel were told by God to go murder all these people. Some of that, I think, that's what they thought they heard. You know? Because as far as they're concerned, the way it was to be human at that time, what are the other options? Because at the time, it was like, there's only so much food, there's only so much resources, and if you're not in control of it, you are dead, right? So it was a real kind of a black and white. It's us or them. And now later on, I guess we've learned to compromise, hopefully, a little bit. But obviously, we still get to the place where compromise is not working. And we decide, well, I'm going to punch you in the face. I'm going to shoot you. I'm going to blow you up. I'm going to burn your house down, or what? You know, we resort to violence. But oftentimes, it is our human explanation. It's not who God is. When somebody tells me they're an atheist, or when I hear somebody is an atheist, I don't have a problem with it at all. Because I know that what they have a problem with is my explanation, or that person's explanation, or that person. They have a problem with the explanation. They're like, that is not the almighty, divine creator of all things. That doesn't make sense. And I don't believe in that. So when they say I don't believe in God, it's really just like an emotional dig at a person that really is saying, I don't believe in the way you're explaining God. You know? And they still believe, everybody believes we don't know how all of this got started. How did life come into existence? What is consciousness? Nobody knows, and nobody has explained it beyond, explained it so completely that there's no more questions. So we're all in the same boat. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about that thing, person, being that is the mystery of it all.
This freedom thing I really am into, because I feel as older I get, the more I know about my faith and study it, the freer I become. But I would like for you, just so I can memorize this, I'd like to have things I can... Mm-hmm. What exactly did that say? I need to let God be free, and I need to be free myself? Is
right.
That what...
Yeah. So it is something to wrap your head around. God being absolutely free and us being absolutely free. These are the two things that must take place. So what that means is, when we let God be God, and we don't say to ourselves, I have to act a certain way, I have to understand God a certain way, I have to achieve a certain something, I have to be a morally... There's something to do in order for God to be God. It's like I have to do or understand something. And the thing is, like, no, God's just God. This is kind of I would say this is the punchline of the book of Job. The punchline of the book of Job. Job is like, why, God? Why? And then God comes back and is like, Job, where were you when all of this started? Where were you? Oh, you weren't here? I was here. So that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. So he's basically telling Job, let me be God. Let me be God. You're never going to figure me out.
That's
You're
right.
never going to know me. You're never going to know me. You're never going to figure me out. You're never going to have all the answers. You'll grow. You'll keep coming toward me because I created all this and you're attracted to me. Just let me be God. Right? So anytime that we try to wrap our mind around God, I mean, it is good. We are trying to learn, but at the same time, we're like, even though I'm learning something more, I know I'll never get the whole thing. But I still want to know more. You know, I still want to know more. But there's not this. This is where Paul always says that he doesn't boast. I can't boast. To be in relationship with God that we don't know, that we can't figure out, that is completely free. The reaction is humility for me. I remain humble because I don't know. I don't know. God knows, but I don't know. And I may know a little bit of some things here and there, and I may learn a little bit more, but ultimately, you know, that's beyond me. So let God be God. Don't box God in. Don't think you've got a formula figured out. Don't think that, I finally found this guy. And this guy, the way he says it, he's like, yeah, I know, now I get it. You know, there's insights. I love those moments where it's like somebody's like, ooh, that's good. That's good. You know, somebody nails it. But there's more. There's more to it. And there might be something, the next big wow might completely contradict the last big wow. And then the other part is human freedom, and maybe that's the part that we struggle with a little bit more. So it's like to allow ourselves to be completely free. This says human laws, human sin, human limitations, human failure, human tragedy. Those are the downsides of the reality of humans. All right, so I'm not constrained by human laws, and that doesn't mean I'm going to do whatever I want, man. That's not what that is. What that means is like, even with human laws in place, it's like there's still stuff that the laws don't fix. The laws are helpful, but it's like, we keep creating more laws thinking that's going to make it better. You know, and this is what some of the most powerful people in our country are the people that are like, I have a new law, right? And those are the people who are like, hey, can you make my law the new law? You know, so we want laws to change, but like, is that really what makes us grow and really live and really? Is that what gives us freedom? It's like, even the best of laws don't get at all of it. You know what I mean? I mean, think about, we give our kids directions, and then we find out like, well, that didn't really fix it. I have to keep giving more directions. And then even, they did pretty good. I have to add some more. So there's always more to add. So sometimes those laws are they're constraining us, you know? And that's why it's good that as we evolve and grow, that means that sometimes we need to look back at laws and say like, that was a dumb law, you know? Women shouldn't vote. That's the law. You know, at some point in time, a bunch of people thought that was a great idea and everybody seemed to be on the same page about it, and then at some point it was like, this is stupid. Why? You know, there's still places in the world I think you can go, and it's like you can't have a driver's license if you're a woman. You know, they think it's a good idea. Well,
But look what happened. So many people were thrown in jail or whatever for marijuana. Now you can go on the street corner and buy it. You know, all those people that were being punished, too bad.
That law
Yeah.
changed over 80 years.
It's a law. It was the law then.
Yeah, it was a great idea. This is what we need to do to make the world a better place. And now we're like, you know what we need to make the world a better place? We need to let anybody be free to have a little bit more marijuana. That's going to make the world a better place. We'll see. We'll see how where that law gets us. I know it's going to be a lot stinkier. I know it's already a lot stinkier when you drive around. So we have limitations. We have our own human limitations. We put limitations on ourselves, you know? What can I do and what can't I do? What should I do and what shouldn't I do? Failures, tragedies, there's another list in here too. Selfishness, victimhood, childhood wounds. These are things that limit us, you know, and so what spiritual awakening is telling us is we can experience the miracle of transformation we never thought could happen. And we need to hold that up as a possibility and don't lose faith that that is possible. And it might seem today like impossible, and maybe it doesn't change today, but it doesn't mean that it'll never change. You know, there are some things that we feel like we are never going to be able to recover from, you know? But don't limit God. Let God be God and let you be you. Let the person that God created inside of you that is beyond gender and beyond age and beyond your IQ and your EQ, your emotional intelligence, you know, beyond all these measures of like better or worse or whatever stupidness that we create amongst ourselves. Don't let those things limit this beautiful soul, this divine light that's inside of you. Let it be free. So when this connects with the free God, it's all bets are off. You know, your life can change, your circumstances change, and all these things. That's the awakening that we're talking about. And when you start to see it, you're going to start to see all the constraints. You know, we'll see our own constraints and other people's constraints, and we'll be like, you poor thing, I'll pray for you because you're limiting yourself, or somebody is limiting you, and you know there's so much, and then we need, and maybe this is a good thing for us to end on. Maybe in all of this, what we need on top of all this is let us have the patience for God's timing to work itself out. And we're not limited to this lifetime. Just believe that. You and I have an eternity to ask why and to get new insights and to draw closer to God. I think that's the beauty of all this. All this is telling us this story never ends. And it's just gonna keep growing and evolving, and there's gonna be more. That's why in the back of our minds we've said things like multiple lifetimes and eternities. The Christian version of the harp and the wings on the cloud and the singing hallelujah for eternity. Come on, that's going to be exciting for about 5 minutes. Maybe there's some cool things you can do with the harp and with the cloud, and there's all kinds of, you'll come up with all the songs that could ever be sung or whatever. But it's like, it's just what we know now you know it's going to be even better. I mean, there has to be something inside of me tells me that, you know. My brain might come around some days and be like, you don't know what you're talking about, you know, but just quiet that voice. It doesn't know what it's talking about. It's not fun to live with that one. So freedom to be ourselves and letting God be free. And trust and believe, don't overthink. You are right, Ken, that has joined us. Yeah, so we'll keep on with 12. There is a lot more, but we have occasionally on some of these days, we have gone through a lot of pages. Just not today or last time.
But we had a lot of questions.
But there are a lot of questions, and that's the whole point. Really, this stuff is all of these books that we bring in. The goal is not the book. It's not. This is just the springboard. This is the springboard to the conversations. So we're doing a good job.
The only thing
We will sing.
We didn't do the more first.
No, we didn't do the first one, but well, let's do them both. So.
What's the first one?
Give thanks is the first one.
Thank you so much.
All right, here's our opener. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because He's given Jesus Christ, His Son. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because He's given Jesus Christ, His Son. And now let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich, because of what the Lord has done for us. And now let the weak say, I am strong. Let the poor say, I am rich, because of what the Lord has done for us. Give thanks. And let's go now. Send us out in the power of your Spirit, Lord. May our lives bring Jesus to the world. May His thought and word bring glory to your name. Send us out in your Spirit, Lord, we pray. Send us out in the power of your Spirit, Lord. May our lives bring Jesus to the world. May His thought and word bring glory to your name. Send us out in your Spirit, Lord, we pray. All right, good stuff.